It's the home office. We thought maybe you were at Rogers Arena in Edmonton wearing a fancy shirt avoiding hooligans in the moss pit. But you're at home. You're safe.
No, I covered that last series. I'm home for the final. I'm excited to be watching from home. And it's very interesting. My daughter works she's just home for the summer for first year university, and she got a job at a restaurant downtown. And they told them all to wear Oilers gear, which that's a tough one for a lot of people in Calgary. She said all day, everybody asked, "Were you forced to wear this?" Like it's almost like a hostage situation. Clearly, you're not wearing this on your own volition. This is done because of some external force. Are you okay? Wink once if you need help.
But Eric, now keep in mind, she has a job to probably make a little bit of money, right? If she is forced against her will to wear this, maybe there's going to be a little bit of mercy tipping involved, that she's going to get a little extra because people know that not her decision, not her choice.
Absolutely. Sometimes in life you have to make sacrifices to make a few bucks, and that's an example of it right there. Look, there apparently one guy complained, like literally went to the manager and said, "This is outrageous that people in Calgary are wearing Oilers jerseys." But most people were pretty good, lighthearted about it, and some understood that she didn't really want to wear it. Some thought it was great that she wore it and didn't ask any questions. Either way, let's just watch some hockey tonight. I can't wait to see how this shakes down because, I'm sure we're going to get into it. But the one thing I'll tell you is there is no chance I would wager a single dime on this series. That's how close I think it is.
When we started the show, I'd mentioned the fact that everybody is picking the Edmonton Oilers. Although Florida are the defending Stanley Cup champions, this is their third trip in 3 years. Everybody's picking the Oilers. They say it'll be close series, but Florida really doesn't have a chance. I'm sure they're okay with being the underdogs, right? I'm sure Paul Maurice has a speech for that pregame ready to go. Is that odd that no one is giving Florida a shot?
And look, I do think it's an overwhelming. There's an overwhelming sentiment out there for sure that this is Connor McDavid's time. Like, good luck trying to beat him twice in a row in the Stanley Cup final. The greatest player, arguably. Let me rephrase that because we got into a big debate about the nuances of that sentence. The best player of all time. That's what I will categorize it. I'm not putting him in greatest yet. You got to win cups to be in the great categories. Yeah. But in terms of pure player, could skate circles around Gretzky. Granted, Gretzky played in a time when training camp involved stopping smoking for a couple weeks. So, like it's a different game, different era, but he's amazing. So, yeah, everyone just seems to feel around the National Hockey League it's McDavid's time. Look, they have a tremendous amount of momentum. The only thing going against them is that Hyman injury, and that if they end up losing this series, I honestly think that'll be the difference. I think he's that important to this team, and he was playing such incredibly inspired hockey with all the hits and everything. So that's a blow. But other than that, they've got all sorts of momentum and feel goods. And Connor Brown looks like he'll be back in for tonight's game, and that's big for them. And I get it. If Skinner continues to play the way he has, and we should give him credit for playing that way, then they do have a fighting chance. But to me, it'll all come down to goaltending, which of course tells me the Florida Panthers do have a chance because Bobrovsky's a whole lot better than Stuart Skinner 99 out of 100 days a year, I'll tell you that.
I can't imagine that Paul Maurice would be okay, even 10 minutes into the game, if nobody is getting any sort of body on McDavid or Draisaitl. And that's hard to do, but they're not going to give him the free pass that Dallas and Vegas did. Like, there's that famous clip, hit them now, because in games 5, 6, and 7, it all adds up and they're going to have nothing left.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that maybe Edmonton, like I said, it's hard to hit Connor McDavid. You're not going to get him, but they're going to try. And I think that's maybe going to be a big thing because he played 2 rounds of rec hockey there where there was no body contact.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't make that mistake again. And the Panthers have a relentless forecheck, and they're a very physical hockey team. Um, that to me is the difference with the Oilers right now. The Oilers were the far more physical team against Dallas, and I just think they've added that to their their repertoire as they learned from last year's road right to Game 7 of the final. They understand that the physical part of the game is so important. Look, Zach Hyman embodied that belief that you had to step it up to another level. So the Oilers will be physical, I think, on everyone. Kachuk on on all the players, but expect Florida to be just as physical, if not more physical. Look, there's going to be a ton of shoving after every whistle and a whole lot of jawing and all that. I think there'll be some bad vibes from day one. And I'm looking forward to that part because it was certainly missing when Edmonton played Dallas. And like you said, in some of the other series, these guys got off a bit scot-free for sure.
Alexander Barkov, who there's no knock on him, but the only thing that would get mentioned about him is he doesn't get mentioned enough because he plays in Florida, but he's a Selke Award winner. Like, he is just so good. Eric, you've seen him play live. Is he one of the best defensive players in the past decade that's played in the NHL?
Yeah, I mean, Bergeron had that award forever, and I do believe Barkov will have it now for the next little run. Look, that's the hardest trophy to vote for us because so many of my fellow scribes, some of us watch a ton of hockey, some don't, and a lot don't pay attention to the defensive side of the game ever. So it goes on reputation, it goes on plus minus, it goes on penalty minutes. Like, it's kind of ridiculous, but hey, he's earned that reputation. And really, when you hear players talk around the league, that's where we get most of our cues in terms of voting for the Selke. Guys who talk about players on other teams and how good they are defensively and how tough they are to play against. And you hear that from everybody who plays against the Florida Panthers. Look, they're a handful to play for as a group. They're a handful to play against as a group. But Barkov in particular, he's going to be, so key in this series. But listen, it's so interesting to me. Like, there's talk that it looks like Anton Lundell and Lusterainen are going to be guys that are counted on heavily to shut down McDavid. Look, everyone's going to have to try to shut down McDavid, but I'm interested to see if they go back to the old school, like put a player on him, like the old school Gretzky days. And it never worked, but you don't only hope to limit them. What I keep hearing from both coaches is in the modern game, and you see it a lot, it's the defensive pairings that are really matching up against the McDavid. It's too hard to go ship for ship matching forward against a forward. You got to count on a certain defensive pair or two to focus on McDavid and Draisaitl throughout the series.
Well, in Aaron Ekblad, and he's buddies with McDavid. It's funny, I went down a rabbit hole on Twitter where there's just a bunch of pictures and tweets of them over the years when they were just young bucks getting paid probably good money in the OHL to play and all of that. So you're going to see a lot of Aaron Ekblad, a lot of Seth Jones. There is that. You are going to have to factor in when the Metallica hits tonight, when the Oilers start taking the ice, the place is going to be nuts. As always, the first 10 minutes, I think if Florida can survive that, Bob stays strong because that's what happened in the Toronto series. A couple of bad early goals, and then the Panthers are playing catch-up and all of that. I hope, and I'm pretty sure this is going to happen, we're going to see way better hockey than we saw in the conference finals. That it's going to be back to round one, round two, because I think it's safe to say the conference final hockey was not necessarily awesome. It's great if your team won, but it wasn't as good as it could be. I was watching highlights from last year, and I'm like, man, that was some good hockey. And I think that's what a lot of us are just craving, to be like, we can get 5, 6, 7 games of this.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure how many people other than maybe Gary Bettman are complaining about the matchup. Like, in terms of pure hockey, everyone believes these are the two best teams through the playoffs. And perhaps in one way, like a lot of people think now, they were destined to meet in the final again last year. There's that great clip that we had on Sportsnet the other night of Matthew Tkachuk shaking Connor McDavid's hand at the end of the Game 7 last year and saying to McDavid, "I'll see you back here next year." Wow, was that powerful and turned out to be quite prophetic. So ratings-wise, it's going to be a stinker in the U.S. But the NHL gets its best player and maybe their best two players in Draisaitl on center stage again in the final. So maybe the league's not too upset about it because you got your marquee star playing in the marquee matchup. I don't know, but I know that in Canada it's going to be very well watched, and not because people in Canada are cheering for a Canadian team to win. I don't believe that that's the way it works very often. And I just think people that are good, strong, solid, knowledgeable hockey fans understand that this has all the ingredients that a Stanley Cup final could possibly want. Superstars, the best goaltender in the NHL is Bobrovsky in my mind. Hellebuck was for sure for 82 games, but in playoffs, Bobrovsky's probably been the best the last 5, 6, 7 years. So I just, I don't think it's that there's missing anything from this matchup again other than Zach Hyman, but that doesn't move the needle ratings wise for sure.
When we were doing a deep dive on the Oilers a few weeks ago, the only problem we had is they don't have any Saskatchewan-born players on their roster. But head coach Chris Knobloch is from Imperial, Saskatchewan. If he's not already the most famous, most accomplished person from Imperial, if he wins a Stanley Cup, I don't know who's ever going to challenge that. Who else is coming from Imperial that is going to top winning the Stanley Cup in Saskatchewan? So there is that, and then the Cup would be back in the province in the summer. And then, of course, you got Glenn Gulletson from Hudson Bay. So there is that Sasky connection. We do like that. One person who we really haven't talked about all that much, and in his pre-game or pre-press conference, he talked about being selfish, that it was such a good feeling last year winning the Cup. Matthew Tkachuk said, you want that again because what that does for your life and how that changes you. Because someone asked, are you really playing for anything this year? You already won one. And he said, no, now it's about being selfish and getting it again. Can't overlook MT.
Well, you're not going to be able to overlook him. He'll be right in the middle of absolutely everything this whole playoffs, just like he stole the stage at the Four Nations before he got hurt. He loves the spotlight, loves the limelight, and he always rises to it. Now, Tkachuk's interesting to me because he hasn't been the Tkachuk that we saw last year. That injury that he sustained at Four Nations, we're going to find out at the end of the series just how significant it was. I mean, it was significant enough for him to miss, 2+ months after the tournament until the playoffs. I just haven't seen the dominance from Matthew Tkachuk that I'm used to seeing in Calgary all these years and in the playoffs last year. I still think he's significantly hampered by whatever it is he's dealing with. I don't know if it's a groin. I don't know if a abdominal tear, oblique. I have no idea. I'm not a doctor. I just know that somewhere in the core, I do believe he's just struggling. And but I still think he'll overcome all that and be a significant part of this. I mean, let's go ahead and try and play a little game, shall we? Let's rank the top five guys we'll be talking about as this series progresses. Okay? In no particular order.
Okay.
Bobrovsky.
I'm taking notes. Okay, Bobrovsky.
Yeah. Bobrovsky, Skinner.
Yep. Skinner.
Connor McDavid, Tkachuk.
It's a good thing you said his last name. I wouldn't have got that. But anyways, Matthew Tkachuk. Okay, good. Yeah.
And Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett's going to be right in the middle of everything. Listen, and again, this is why this series is so good. I could keep going on and say Draisaitl. I could say Reinhart. I could say Barkov. Marchand's going to be in the middle of a lot of things. But those are my five that I think we're going to be talking about almost, the most going into as this series goes on.
And then you didn't even factor in a couple of keys that aren't even going to be lacing them up in the series. Brady and Big Walt in the stands drinking beer. And how many beers will they drink? How many times they get? They are the Taylor Swift of the NHL when it comes to the playoffs because the cameras always go to them for reactions when plays happen. Brady crushing beers. It's always fun to watch the Tkachuks in the crowd because there's Walt. What's the mom's name? What's her name?
Chantal.
Okay, so you got Brady, you got Chantal, and then sometimes the sister or the daughter's there. The
sister,
right?
Yeah, she's there a lot. And both brothers, God bless them for being good older brother, both of them claim she's the best athlete in the house. She's
All right.
got a scholarship, field hockey, and all this. But anyway, she'll be there. So yeah, they'll get plenty of airtime. I'm interested if they come to Edmonton. Like I do think they will. I do think they should. But I wouldn't be surprised if they sat out games 1 and 2 and then join the series in Florida from there. I don't know.
It should be fun. I was checking some of the resale tickets yesterday, like near the roof was like 700, but it had jumped to about 1100 by today. And then like lower bowl action is going for like 2,900, for a single somewhere here, there. And,
Great.
I had to explain to my brother-in-law who lives in the States. He's like, why do they keep showing all those people outside? I'm like, those are the poor people that can't afford tickets. They just go to the parking lot and watch on a giant big screen and it's free. He's like, oh, because he wanted to know, well, how much does it cost to get in there? I'm like, nothing, man. You just show up and you do what you do.
Yeah, you show up and you get ready to fight. No, it's largely quite peaceful, I'm told.
I'm told. I wouldn't go near there.
I
like
would
any
not
normal
go
sane
near.
human being. I would not go near there.
No.
Yeah, everybody's saying all the right things, as they always will in the press in the lead up. There was no locker room material. I think it's just two teams that really respect each other, that are probably have been chomping at the bit. But I think with the days off to give whoever maybe a little banged up, if a day or two even makes a difference at this time of year, I mean, you never know. But I think that probably right about now, we're less now than 2 hours from face-off. You got to know that the anxiety and the butterflies have got to be getting it, guys. Especially the ones that weren't part of either club last year. Because what Florida has about 5, is it for about 5 guys, and Edmonton has about 7 that weren't part of the clubs last year, where a lot of them, this is going to be their first chance to be in the cup. And the Oilers said, hey, we know how to play this year. We know how it's going to go. Is it really that different of unknown that you're just, because I'm like, well, it's still playoff hockey, but maybe it's not Stanley Cup playoff hockey.
For the newbies, this is what they've all dreamed of, and it's got to be big on them. But there's so much leadership in both those locker rooms of guys who've been in the league for a lot of years, but also been in the final now for at least this is their second year, and in Florida's case for 3 years in a row. I think the nerves can be calmed by those older guys. But yeah, I mean, what a moment for all the newbies. I think of the Seth Jones and these guys. Like, earlier in this year, he was just in a hapless situation that he wanted out of so badly, and he finally got his wish and ended up getting swapped out to a Stanley Cup finalist. Like, talk about winning the lottery. So I'll be watching those guys as well, because they're fun to watch in their first one.
All right. Are you going to like a Stanley Cup watch party? Are you just at home with the fam? And let's go back to the start. If your daughter was forced to wear Oilers gear at his job or at her job, did she own Oilers gear to begin with, or did she have to go buy it to even get a shift on the schedule?
No. So Dad has a ridiculous jersey collection, and at one point I said as a hockey fan, like, I need to own all of the Gretzky's jerseys: St. Louis, LA, Rangers, Oilers. So I swallowed hard and bought an Oilers jersey. Look, I still think it's a beautiful jersey, especially with 99 on it and Gretzky on the back. Like, it's like I give credit that they're gorgeous jerseys, but I don't really. It was hard to see my daughter wearing one. I'll say that.
Eric,
even she admitted it wasn't comfortable. Even she said, I don't know about this, Dad. I said, look, got to make a buck.
Oh, and then pay carbon tax on top of it. Look where we are in 2025, Eric. All right. Okay, you're back on Friday with Barney, and then you're off for the summer. As always, this has been awesome. We love you. And all right, don't be afraid to invite us over in case you're doing a giant cup party and you want to fly us in. Because as we know, you hang with guys that have private jets. So it's Eric Francis. inside
See
the
you, buddy.
NHL.